Constructing Arguments in the Foundational Writing Assignment, Week 2, Task 1A, Lesson for Philosophy and Ethics with Dr. Carrillo, Fall 2020. I crossed out an extra I had there, but decided not, and an extra M. I'm not going to reprint this to save paper, but I do recognize that I had typos there. Why are we having a lesson on argument? This was covered in the video introduction for Bundle 2. That said, let's go ahead and jump into our lesson. So the way we're going to be using the word argument in this class is provided here initially. An argument is a set of statements where at least one, a reason, is given to support another, a conclusion. So one thing you'll notice that I do sometimes is use triangles. When you see a triangle, you are seeing my symbol for making sure you notice that a word names a fundamental and powerful concept in a lesson, theory, and whatnot. Now you are going to get more information about arguments in terms of how to analyze them and how to clarify them when we do a bunch of soft talk modules and video lessons and get to practice all that later in the semester. Right now, I'm going to give you just enough information to get the assignment done for week 2, but we will get more into this later in the semester. So again, then we have here our official definition for argument. Anytime I ask you to construct an argument or to give me reasons in support of a belief you have, I am asking you to give me an argument from the standpoint of philosophy or logic. When a lot of people think of argument, they have a much broader sense. They think an argument has to be about a moral topic, about opposing point of views. They think it has to involve more than one person, but that's not necessarily true. So long as there is a set of statements where at least one is giving a reason to support or justify or warrant or advance another a conclusion, we have an argument. So notice that there's nothing in here about emotions and feelings. A lot of times when people use the word argument, they're using it to describe a situation in which people are having an angry exchange or an emotional exchange of words, especially where there is disagreement about something. But that is not how we're using argument in this class, and it's not how we're using the word argument in this assignment. So as you work through the foundational writing assignment, make sure when I direct you to construct an argument that you are using this definition here. Now, an important term that is in here is statements. So in this class, when we talk about a statement, and actually I have some missing information here. So a statement is a declarative sentence that is a declarative sentence that, so the arrow should go right here. A statement is a declarative sentence that asserts something is actual or probable. So a statement is a declarative sentence that something is actual or probable. That means a statement makes a claim about something. So here we have an example of both an argument and, because of that, statements. I am going to use brackets to show you where each statement is in the argument that I have right here. So I'm going to use one bracket to locate this statement, and I'm just going to do a 1 to say here's the first statement. And then I'm going to do another set of brackets here to show you where there's a second statement. If I'm writing something down or I mark something down, it's so important that you do the same. So items 1 and 2 are examples of a statement. Let's write that down. So, in fact, or we could draw arrows like this. Examples of how we in philosophy will use the word statement. This is so important. You have to apply this knowledge and this concept with this definition the entire semester, and you will be graded for accurately applying it and showing me that you have a correct understanding of how we'll be using this word statement throughout the entire semester. A lot of times when people think of statement, they're thinking of it in the way that the court or the criminal justice system might use it, or the way a police officer uses it. So in court and with police officers, for example, when you're in an accident, you might be asked to give a statement. A statement in that context, in the criminal justice context, in the court, or when there's an eyewitness, or somebody's giving a testimonial, or somebody's reporting an accident to a police officer, a statement can have a bunch of sentences in it. It can be comprised of a paragraph. But in this class, statements are smaller in terms of communication chunks. Notice this. Look at this little communication chunk right here. This is a declarative sentence, and it's asserting that something is actual, the case, aligns with reality, or at least probable. Here we have another chunk of communication. So another thing that might help you to understand how we're using the word statement is to think of statements as being very small chunks of communication, okay? So we're going to say very small chunks of communication that express a complete thought. So that goes with that, right? So what I'm doing right now is I'm elaborating right here. Examples of how we in philosophy will use the word statement. And I just said you might want to add this, that these are very small chunks of communication that expressed a complete thought, okay? You can think of these also as the parts or elements of an argument. Now, as you can see from our definition, an argument is a set of statements where there's at least one that functions as a reason and one that functions as a conclusion. That means there will always be at least two kinds of statement, okay? So arguments will have at least two kinds of statements. So let's look at an example, the example that we have in here. So in this statement, it says, we should reopen elementary schools. Then they say, the reason I think, and this should be this, the reason I think this is that children are not learning social skills when having to just sit and do work in front of a computer. Notice how they were very explicit in letting us know that they were about to give us a reason for something. So when they say the reason I think that, what are they referring back to? Well, they're telling us in statement 2 with the indicators the reason I think this back to 1. In other words, statement 2 is being used as a reason to support statement 1. So this entire thing, so we're going to say well, let's actually label them. So this is statement 1, and we're going to label it as a conclusion. So go ahead and label S1 as a conclusion. And then go ahead and label, to make it really obvious in your notes, that statement 2 is a reason. The reason being given in support of what? That conclusion. So statement 2 in the paragraph is given in support of statement 1. Okay, so S2 is a what? A reason, and S1 is a conclusion. So one last thing I want to show you to help you understand what we mean by an argument is as follows. We can do this. So we can, to more clearly see what all is going on here with our definition for argument, is we can list out the statements. So there's one reason given, so we can do reason one, and then I'm going to pluck it out of paragraph form. Now, in the foundational writing assignment, you're going to give me arguments in paragraph form. But if you want to take a look at and check and make sure that your argument is as good as you can get it, you can try this on the side. So I have reason one. The reason I think this is that's kind of just like an indicator phrase saying here comes a reason or some support for something I just said. So when it comes to this part, I'm going to go ahead and just leave that out. Children are not learning social skills when having to just sit and do work in front of a computer. Okay, so that's the reason that's given in the paragraph. And then their conclusion, and so what helps is using this technique. So in this technique, you put your reasons and then your conclusion to see if you think you've given enough support for your conclusion, to see if the reasons or the statements that you think are functioning as reasons, as support for something, are relevant to your conclusion. So the conclusion was, we should reopen elementary schools. All right. So in the foundational writing assignment, when you're doing your arguments, I'm more interested in your technical skills with respect to, can you give me reasons in support of a conclusion? Notice what I have written typed up right here. In your week 2 assignments, and I should say just assignment, you are going to construct arguments that start with the conclusion first, and you're going to do so in paragraph form. So let's add that. So, in the lessons for week 2 that you should follow prior to constructing arguments, we'll focus on arguments that do just that. In other words, since all of your paragraph formed arguments for the foundational writing assignment require you to start with the conclusion first, all of the examples I give you in the lessons that follow will do just that. We're always going to have the conclusion first. So in your foundational writing assignment, when I ask you for an argument, you're always going to start with the conclusion. Make sure you follow more videos prior to working on the foundational writing assignment to get lots of examples that are both good and bad and learn from them to create usable content that you can use for later graded assignments throughout the semester.